evening, everyone. Thank you all for joining us. You're in for a night of just amazing conversation. I'm here with these four amazing ladies. I'm going to let them introduce themselves.
Hi, everyone. This is Eagle Ray Empress, also known as Nikita Shiel-Rolle. I'm joining you today from Cat Island. I am probably more well known as the founder and CEO of both Young Marine Explorers and the Cat Island Conservation Institute. I am also the owner of Cat Island Mermaid, a conservation art and wellness company, as well as an estate agent with H.G. Christie. And I'm so excited to be here with you today.
Awesome. Well, thank you for having me. I'm Mallory Raphael. I work for BREEF, Bahamas Reef Environment Educational Foundation, and I am the Research and Environmental Education Officer there. I was also the Sculpture Garden Coordinator that helped to plan and build the Bahamas' first coral reef sculpture garden, the BREEF Sir Nicholas Nuttall Sculpture Garden in 2014. And I'm also the mentor for the Best Scholars, the Bahamas Environmental Steward Scholars Program in partnership with the Island School. So great to see you all and glad to be here.
Hello. Hello, everyone. I'm Candis Marshall. I am an artist, entrepreneur, and my specialty is tires. I work almost exclusively with tires, transforming them into functional works of art. You know, if you can't wear it, then what's the point? I'm the CEO of Bon, which is a environmentally sustainable company, and our focus is on everything recycled. We build outdoor equipment, we build playgrounds, we build, you name it, we can build it out of tires, out of any discarded material.
Sorry, I think my Wi-Fi cut out for 2 seconds, but I'm back. We're good. I'm Natalie Willis. I'm the Associate Curator at the National Art Gallery of the Bahamas. I'm currently Nassau-based, but originally from Grand Bahama, and one of the founders of this traveling exhibition that me and Zira put together for you today. And yeah, there's another timeline in the universe where I still make art. I'm traditionally trained in fine art practice, but these days I do more of the exhibition making and writing, and that's kind of, yeah, that's been more of my focus. A lot of writing, Jesus Christ. So yes.
Awesome. Welcome, everybody. Thank you all for coming. This is the In Conversation From Time, What Has a Perfect Memory? And I just want to get started by asking a question to all of you, and you can answer in any order you feel most comfortable, just jump in. But do you identify as an environmentalist? And if so, what does that mean to you?
I can jump right in there. Yes, I certainly do identify as an environmentalist. I feel a really deep connection with the ocean. I'm definitely happiest when I'm underwater on a reef or in a mangrove. And I really love to share the appreciation for these special and important places with youth, Bahamian youth, and especially budding environmental stewards. We need more stewards to carry this country forward in a more sustainable way. And we're so dependent on our reefs and other marine ecosystems. We're completely surrounded by water. So it's a dream to have all Bahamians appreciate the ocean and take action to protect those ecosystems. In short, making everyone an environmentalist.
I think that I believe that I'm an environmentalist in more than one way, and not only through my art, but just through my daily work. Everything that I create, every organization that I'm a part of, all of it has to do with reducing the amount of waste, taking something that is being used and finding another life or giving it another life. You know, everything. I realized that the bigger challenge with the wider world is that they look at waste and they see it as just that. It's waste. That's it. It's finished. It's done. You throw it away and there's nothing more to it. But through my work, I hope to change that conversation. I hope that I help people to see that, hey, there is more life in absolutely everything that is created.
I feel like the word has a lot of weight behind it, if that makes sense. So I feel like I do identify as being an environmentalist in the sense of like, I care about the environment, and I admittedly, probably in smaller ways than I should, try to do my part. There's a lot more I could do. I think for me, there's something about the word that implies a lot more activism than perhaps I actually personally engage in, even though I'm a big supporter of it. So I kind of like, I feel a little bit like it's like a yes, I do, but also like I don't want to take away from the folks who are doing the work that essentially these three women are doing right now. Like it's kind of, whereas it's more like a background, I guess, to like part of my practice, it's in very much like the driving force, I think, for everybody else. So I kind of want to give a little bit of deference and space for that. I hope that makes sense.
Does. I will jump in. So me being me, I was like, let me define environmentalist. And it really is as simple as a person who loves, let me see what it is like, a person who's connected, concerned about protecting the environment. So I feel, Natalie, that describes you as well.
I can breathe.
Yes, girl, own it. It's yours. With that being said, labels, labels, labels. Oh my goodness, labels. Why we always want to label ourselves. So absolutely, I guess you could say that I'm an environmentalist, but I don't really use that word. I much prefer to acknowledge that I, like you, am nature, and I celebrate all that is on this planet. And a big part of that is serving as a guardian for our beautiful planet, ocean. And I do many things that probably many people will define as an environmentalist, but I think that's such a bucket that has so many emotions and, you know, vibes about it that a lot of people, you know, look at maybe condescendingly, or when sometimes people hear the word environmentalist, they're like, I'm not like you, like, you know, y'all, you know, a bit. I think sometimes environmentalists can be associated with extreme action. Yeah. And I really believe that we have this opportunity to reframe and redefine how it is that we as individuals show up day by day, and also what that looks like. And I think a big part of that is just acknowledging that you can't separate me from the ocean and the trees behind me. We just simply are all on this shared planet, and part of our duty as living and celebrating this life is also being a steward of it. So that's how I'm going to respond to that question.
I really love the use of the word like stewardship in this. And I was thinking, like, as you were talking, it's just like, maybe, you know, I mean, as much as like, I think there's an importance in being able to identify as like these words, even if I find myself a bit tentative, I think there is an importance in it. But I think even like words like Earth ally or something, you know what I mean? Like there's something kind of lovely about that I think feels a bit more approachable for people, because language is also like one of the things that I think is maybe a bit of a barrier, is like, you know, especially because there's so much, you know, if you're not as sort of fluent in the science jargon and things, it can get a little bit dense for people. So, you know, I think there's something kind of lovely about making that more open that I really enjoy. Stewardship. Yeah.
Exactly. And so this is why I know some people may be like, Eagle Ray Empress, what is with that? So in the world that I believe we all live in, you and I all have superpowers. And as Eagle Ray Empress, I am forever in service to the guardians of planet Ocean. And so many of the people who live in my community, both here on Cat Island, but also throughout the world, it's growing. We all have superhero names, whether it's the Ocean King or Ocean Queen. And there'll be a really fun documentary coming out in a few weeks that starts to tell that story. But I think when we talk about the environment, we have this epic opportunity to reframe how we see ourselves in the environment that surrounds us. And in doing that, a big part of this is us owning the light that shines within us and being able to share our gifts with the world, whatever they look like. And as a guardian of planet Ocean, as Eagle Ray Empress, you know, and whatever I know one day you'll tell me what your superhero name is, we get to work as equitable partners in this magic journey.
I love that. The holisticness is really lovely.
Yeah, Mermaid Mallory.
Amazing.
I go by Mermaid Mallory.
Oh,
I love
that's
that.
good.
I love that.
Or Mallory Underwater, because my husband's Eddie Underwater. And so that's his
Oh.
name on Facebook. So.
That's so sweet.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for that, for clarifying that for us. Nikita, you brought up being stewards of Earth, and you kind of talked about how really is anyone can be, you know, quote unquote, an environmentalist, whatever that, you know, word means. Maybe we can talk a bit about what you see, because the three of you, I should say, that have dedicated your lives and your livelihoods, you've closely tied them to being stewards of the planet in one way or the other, whether it's through your art practice or through your advocacy or through just what you do every day. Just can you talk a bit about how you see our role as stewards of the earth? I mean, maybe you can start with Mallory for that one.
Sure. Well, we only have one planet. And in recent years, you know, some of our neighbors have rolled back a lot of environmental protections, but it's good to see the Bahamas kind of waking up and moving towards, trying baby steps, moving towards sustainability, like giving up all the single-use plastics, the 4 types of plastics last year. And putting some solar panels in schools. And that's really cool. And I would love to see a lot more. I would love to see us free from fossil fuels and oil. So you can't, in one way, start these initiatives and then also not deny future drilling in the Bahamas completely. So we're all hoping for that soon. It's been in the news again. But me personally, I feel like one of my favorite ways to be a steward is to grow coral reefs and grow coral at the sculpture garden and train other people how to do this. So part of the Bahamas Environmental Steward Scholars, we have a mentorship program that's part internship and part island school participation, which is another amazing opportunity for kids to really get connected with the environment and then kind of stepping stone them into a career that helps them want to help the Bahamas further, like our past scholars in Ministry of Works and Coastal Management and working for Coral Vito, working for Perry Institute. But we also at BREEF, more broadly speaking, have trained a lot of teachers so that they can start teaching marine science to all their students and kind of networking out. And when we reached a goal to have one teacher in every school, we moved to our Royal Bahamas Defense Force, because when they're, you know, picking up poachers, we want them to know exactly what it is that they're protecting, because we're so dependent on our coral reefs and oceans for fisheries and protection from storms. So that kind of environmental stewardship is very important to share with basically everybody and make everybody a citizen science. And I'm sure that Nikita can really talk about citizen science and networking out all of this wonderful stewardship as well.
From over the years, I've done some work with my nonprofit. It's called Mega Mergers Apprenticeship Program, where I teach young people how to take tires and transform them into functional works of art. Part of the purpose behind all of that is to kind of start to retrain people's minds as it relates to what it is waste. You know, when we go throughout the islands now, especially here in Nassau, everywhere you go, there are derelict vehicles, there's trash everywhere. There's so many different forms of waste just everywhere that is affecting our environment in such a crucial way. And we've become kind of, you know, we're used to it. We're used to it to a certain degree that we don't see it anymore. And a part of the program and a part of my mission has been to take what we see every day and transform it into something that people can see it differently. You know, it's no longer just your car riding on the street. You know, the exhaust coming from that car, that is something that is affecting the environment, that is affecting your health. The tires on the car, the way that you drive this car, all of these things are affecting your environment, the way that you live in your home, the things that you do, the things that you purchase, the things that you buy, all of these things affect your environment. And what I found to be a very effective way of getting this message across, it stems from something that I heard when I was a kid. You know, they said when I was a kid, it's like, if you're gonna be an artist, you gotta be broke, right? And I'm like, no, you can make money as an artist.
Yes, artists need to live too. We like to eat, you know? We also like food.
Flourish, not just live, flourish.
Exactly.
So, but we started thinking, and then one of the jobs that was like, oh, frowned upon as a kid was, oh, you're going to be a garbage collector. Oh my God, that was taboo. But now for me, it's like, hold up, I can be an artist and a garbage collector, but let me show you how this is done. Let me show you how this is really done, And in doing all of the things that I do, it transforms people's minds about the impact that they are making on the environment. It brings them in a position that they're like, oh, well, man, I can't save the world, but you know what? Maybe I'm going to reuse that container. Maybe rather than throwing away that item, let me buy a bale of rice instead of a small bag. Let me put it in a container instead of this, instead of that. All of these things is curbing people's mindset as to what they can do as an environmental steward. It doesn't have to be the big, big things, but if everyone does a little thing, everyone takes accountability for a little thing. And the way that I tell people, I said, you know what, just gussy it up, man. Gussy it up. When you buy it, that was one thing, and then you could put your spin on it and you could use it again. Gussy it up. It's gonna be fantastic, And that's what I encourage people to do. And it's a simple thing, but I realize it is very, very, very effective.
And I would love to see tire art combined with gardening, like the tires that they use to garden at CV Bethel. I love seeing them used in very innovative ways. I'm not sure what kind of impact that would have on the tire breaking down if it's food, if it's edible, but it's really nice to see something being reused rather than go into a dump that might catch on fire and cause cancer.
Yes,
exactly. And even along those lines, there are so many projects that I've had cooking in my mind. Every year for the past 5 years, we've had Mega Mergers, a summer camp. During that summer camp, I used that as a think tank. First, introducing the kids to the idea of recycling and showing them what is possible, giving them an opportunity to create something, and then giving them the freedom to think about solutions. So every single year, we get this think tank of solutions. What can we do with these tires? How can we integrate it back into our everyday lives without damaging the environment? How can we make it more profitable for us? How can we transform the use of it without adding more waste? Things like this. These are the conversations that keep me up at night. Fortunately, only me listening to this conversation. When I hope to have this conversation with the wider world at some point to say, hey, we can do this. Come on, it's simple. Just you do a little bit, you do a little bit, you do a little bit, and we'll get it done.
I think that's the thing as well, is like inviting people in instead of shaming people is a much more effective tool. Because I think people we know we're stubborn as a people. So like if you tell somebody they have to do it, sometimes it's like, it doesn't work so well. But if you like invite people in and be like, oh, you're a great person, you should probably do this. You do this, don't you? And then they're like, oh yeah. No, I do that. I do this little thing. You know what I mean? Like, it's important. It's important to make it feel like community as well. And then people like share like ideas, like, your energy, like speaking about everything just now as well was just like infectious. It's just like, oh yeah, like I actually feel like better about like the little things that I do when I try and like gussy something up. You know what I mean? Like, you're right.
Gussy it up. Gussy. I'm gonna start using that. I'm gonna gussy it up.
Right?
Use it again.
Such great conversation. I since moving to Cat Island, I've now July will make 4 years full time living in Cat Island, which is very exciting, and it has been such a transformation for the way that I've seen the Bahamas, seen conservation, and understood opportunities and stewardship. And a big part of these past 4 years, what I have learned has been often, I think, and this is, I'm going to speak globally to this, but often when we talk about taking care of our environment, conservation, climate change, we talk about it from a very science focused perspective of this is what's wrong, and you have to just change, just do things, do things differently. And so Candis, I love that you're you're providing very tangible, same with you, Mallory, when you talk about the work that BREEF is doing. So very tangible action items that can help demonstrate behavioral change. And I think often sometimes we forget that behavioral change, behavior is inspired action, right? And so the decisions that we make every single day come from and are dependent on how we're feeling, what's been going on in our world, whether it's in this present moment or something from our childhood that we have not processed, something from our ancestors. You know, many, like 90.6% of the Bahamian people are of African descent. And so there's so many factors that go into the micro decisions that we make every single day that result in how we act and show up. And I believe this is where, when we talk about stewardship, we really have to settle into the truth of what is. And this is where I think science is so valuable, because it helps us with remove the emotions and make an assessment of where we are, whether we're talking about the biology and the coral reefs behind me, or we're talking about the state of us as individuals that make up our community. And I think often we forget, we dive so quick into this is what we need to do for the ocean, but we don't stop to pause and acknowledge that most of our country are not really equipped. Most of our country didn't maybe had like general science, but not any real in-depth science. You know, most of our country struggle with literacy, and we have to lovingly own that. And it's not you struggle with literacy and therefore there's no future for you, but it's about us who are in these leadership positions about pausing and being like acknowledging, okay, most of my community is struggling with this thing. How do I reframe how I'm talking about this topic that's so important to me, whether it's the ocean, land conservation, climate solutions? But we have to meet people where we are, and often we have not done that. And this is why you often see these big divides as to who are the people, what demographics within the Bahamas are active and involved in, especially topics around the environment, because we have to be real. When you're in crisis mode, you don't have time to think about anything else, let alone how you're going to get out of this moment. And so when you come at someone about, oh, like stewardship, protect the sharks, do this, and they work 7 days a week, you know, for minimum wage, you can't. We're not gonna connect. And I think this is where conservation mindfulness comes in. This is where self-awareness comes in, where we really get to, if we want to protect the oceans, we want to see a flourishing country for us, and by extension, the region, we need to really take a moment to shift out of this like oppressive mindset of shame, blame, and guilt, which is something that we often use a lot of time. You know, it comes out of like how we've been trained and
post-colonial things. Let's be real.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. And move into a love ethic approach. So I always love to reference like Bell Hook or Barbara Love, where we look at love, care, and compassion, and how do we choose, you know, be intentional with how we are going about engaging people in conservation work. You know, are we taking in everything into consideration? And sometimes being, again, I'm going to use that word, environmentalist, means stopping and listening and identifying what are the needs that my friend has. And if he needs $10, then you give him $10 before I'm like, come help me do this coral work, right? So we have to put, I think, the humanity, and this is why I always talk about ocean love, because when we bring the emotions into this work, when we talk about the ocean and the environment from a point where every single Bahamian can see themselves in the ocean and see how the ocean connects to them, then, you know, as Candis, you talk about, our opportunities are endless, you know, because then the innovation's going to come and people are going to have the time and space to create, launch those new businesses, you know, develop that new research project. But we have to make sure that we're grounded and in a position to even have those conversations.
For sure. I think that's perhaps where I think for me, like my role as somebody in the arts community kind of comes in, because like we're supposed to be the people who very often people do not, but we're supposed to be like focused on like community building and like increasing access to things and trying to, probably for want of a better word, trying to translate things for people. And like you said, meeting people where they're at, like that's, you know, that human element is like, we're talking about humans as a problem all the time, but like, we're not talking about like our humanity as like a way to kind of like find a way in to everything and to like find a way to like, you know, again, like inspire people, motivate people, give support to people as well, because I think that was kind of coming up in what you were saying as well, like Nikita, is like, you know, if people, you know, are struggling all the time, if we have like these systemic and structural issues here with people just not being able to like properly survive in an easy way, of course they don't have any energy or time for that. But there's something about how creativity is such a inherent and important part of our humanity that like that can kind of give a little bit, sometimes just a little bit of like a little bit of a lift up, you know what I mean, in people's spirits. Sometimes it can be like a little bit less hard to kind of process, because it's like it's about your spirit more, or it's about like your culture. And I think that can help more than sometimes people feeling like, I don't want no science lesson, I just need to try and figure out how to like get this money, you know what I mean? Like, and that's not the intention of anybody like at all, but it's just this, the framing. It's like the way that the way that conversations around this have been framed have been like really problematic.
A part of I understand exactly where you're coming from, because when I started having these conversations about using tires and recycling them and using them for all of these different purposes, that kept on coming to mind. It's like, you know what? People are thinking, guess what? I have things to do. I have this to do. I have that to do. I need to make money. I need to make money. And so my focus moved away, even though it's very creative, it's a very, very creative process. My focus moved away from the creativity and more to the functionality. Hey, listen here, this is how you can make money. You know, even though my purpose is let's help the environment.
It's about understanding our context, right?
Everyone else, they're trying to focus on how do I survive? How do I make my life better? You know, something as simple as I have this conversation with people all the time. I said, you know what? When you buy a sweet pepper, save the seeds, right? Mm-hmm. And you know the egg cartons that you're about to throw away, put them in the egg carton. Then put a little bit of water in the egg carton, put it on your windowsill. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to do anything much, you know? Mm-hmm. And giving people just things that every day, just a little bit by little bit, mm-hmm. changing their behavior. It's just like working with children. And I realize that, you know, now because of the pandemic, working with tires is very dirty work. And so I've had to switch from that aspect of things and return to my photography practices is where I started out. And I was a micro photographer, and my focus was on plant life, right? And so now I'm creating more of that type of work again, because a lot of people are in front of their screens. And so you're in front of your screen. And so I'm taking you closer. I'm taking you into your gardens. I'm taking you, this is what a leaf looks like. This is what this looks like. This is what up close, right? So there's more going on around you than you think. There's more to your life than you think. Yes, you went to work all day. Yes, you have to make that money. But you know what? If when you come home, rather than walking straight inside, if you were to just walk along your hedge, even if it's your apartment, walk along your hedge and just take a closer look. See this light, you know, see how you just standing here are a part of this. And if you really want to be a part, just take a cup of water, pour it on the plant, man. It only takes a second, you know, and starting to inspire people to look deeper. Because I feel as though if we start to get people to be more, I guess, for me, maternal, that's the best word for me. You got to, this mother, or you got to be the mother now. If you get them to think more like a mother, so, you know, I'm going to take care. And you introduce them to it, and you get them to see the beauty of it, and you get them to see the value of it. And it's like, listen, I know you go into work and you pass by the beach all the time, but I took a photo of those waves crashing on the shore, and I want you to see it. I want you to slow down, and I want you to see it. I want you to see yourself in it. I want you to feel that washing over your body. You know what? 5 o'clock in the morning. You know, I know you go out at 7, but come out at 5 and let's sit on the beach. And when you get people to connect like that, when they see trash on the beach, when they see trash rolling in on the waves, they're like, hold up. This is not what I was sold. The idea I was sold is that it's going to wash over me and it's going to be great. You know?
Candis, a lot of what you're talking about really speaks to the work that we're doing with the Cat Island Conservation Institute. And so I often say, so the Cat Island Conservation Institute was established immediately after Hurricane Dorian, when myself and a number of other Bahamian and international thought leaders realized that we had to take climate action more seriously, and we wanted to commit to bold and ambitious climate solutions, and the research that's going to drive that and inform that. And so often these days I talk about, when education in the Bahamas, I think historically has trained people to be of service to those living, working, and playing in the Bahamas. And I really like to say that at the Cat Island Conservation Institute, we are educating and inspiring Bahamians to live, work, and play in the Bahamas. And working in the Bahamas may mean being of service to those who come and visit our magical shores. However, there's a very important distinction where, because of our colonial history, we did not learn how to be of service to ourselves. And this is something that we need to learn. And now we have the opportunity to learn. And so I'm so very excited. Many, I'm sure, who are listening know the work of Lovato Stubbs. And he and a team were in Cat Island over the weekend, or a couple weeks ago, working on a short doc, sort of sharing the story of how we are working with our community and reimagining what education looks like for us as Bahamians, and really getting in touch with our history, right? And understanding the impact that our history has had, and that now that we know and have a better understanding of what has happened, we got to be intentional in choosing about what direction we want to take our future in. And I think when we talk about the environment, when we talk about really national development, where are we going as the Bahamas, and where do we want to see ourselves? It's such an exciting time because we get to create this. And I understand there's systems and there's challenges, and we are all in amazing leadership positions now where we really have impact on lives of hundreds, thousands of lives throughout our country and globally. And so, and this is where art is so powerful. Art is so powerful, and it's something that I really use all the time now. Yeah, if you follow me on Instagram, I'm Cat Island Kita, and I'm learning Amharic.
Painting
but this is how I think. This is how I get inspiration to do the science work, to come up with these climate solutions, is allowing my just dropping into the creative flow that just kind of comes out, and then processing my thoughts. So art is so powerful, and really it's all about, for me, the STEAM education, mixing science, technology, engineering, art, and math, and making this yummy funness where we get to play and create and have fun, because life is supposed to be lived and have fun, right?
Yeah. And I love when people create art from found ocean plastic, and you see this giant parrotfish of 10 colors of all these little pieces of things and that's something I have to say, shout out to Crystal Ambrose for really raising awareness about plastic pollution, and in conjunction with the Eco Schools and BREEF and Life for Key Foundation, just getting everybody to be a part of that citizen science, to say, well, how many plastic bags am I using with my family every week? And then how many of those disappear out of the landfill when we use a reusable bag? Because believe me, I ran into some people, men particularly, that said, I'm not going to carry a reusable bag. This was way before all that happened. It looks like a purse. And now you see plenty of daddies shopping with reusable bags. It's not a big deal. But, because of that perseverance and because of that community involvement and giving people the positive feeling of doing something really good with as simple as a beach cleanup, we've been sponsoring these beach cleanups, Nikita and Lashanti, the siren. There's so many people now moving in that direction of being aware and really caring. So that's awesome.
And this is where I want to just piggyback off of that, Mallory. This is our decade, Bahamas. I want you to hear me. This is our moment. We have, so the UN, the big focus right now is this ocean decade, and the world, just sort of like how there was so much excitement to go to the moon or go to Mars. Right now, there's this global excitement to go to the ocean and understand the ocean. And guess what? All we got is
it.
And so now it's really about, how do we equip our people? How do we, push back that comfort zone and learn to put our faces below the water, learn how to swim? If we are serious about diving into this blue economy, green economy, orange economy, well, we need to educate people to be able to thrive and to tap into those new spaces. And so, the more that we have this mixing of, interdisciplinary art, science, math, everything else, writing, all the things, it's going to enable each of us to become more aware of what we find is fun and how we want to show up and harness our talents and gifts. And that is going to enable us to move to this, to into this new future, this exciting future for us.
This discussion is amazing. And I love that you guys
Really?
just know what each other is talking about and just bouncing off each other, because the next question would have been, what do art and artists bring to the environmental conversation? But I feel like you all touched on that a bit. So if any one of you want to add anything about how specifically art can help with this discussion or help further this initiative, this issue of any environmental issues in general, or even just further the conversation, right? What can artists do?
I think that
You go first.
Okay. I think that artists are the people to really shift the conversation in a great way. You know, when we look around, everything that we live in, that we interact with, is art. There is something for someone to connect with on that artistic plane. And so now we have the means, we have the tool to do the thing, you know? We have the tool to engage anyone who is at any level. Now it is up to us to say, okay, you know what? This is our target audience. This is our demographic. This is who we're gonna target. We're gonna put this cause, we're gonna put this idea of stewardship to the test, and we're gonna present it in such a way that now when people go home and they look at their front door, they're like, oh, you know what? This wood was reclaimed from X, Y, and Z place. You know, they didn't clear out the forest. It was, you know, a source responsibly. Things like that is very, very important. And as artists, we can create the elements that will draw people in, that will make people want to know. Right now, people don't really want to know. They have a lot going on. They don't want to know. But as an artist, we have the tool, the know-how, the skills to draw people in and make them commit, not make them, but cause them to commit to being a steward just by what we create and how we create it.
For sure. And I think there's something really important about people remembering that for a lot of like our creative history as human beings, a lot of that has been tied to some kind of advocacy or activism, like, you know, whether it's people who are making work, you know, sort of like post-war to discuss like how war is all of the horrific things that it is, or now there's a lot of conversations around, you know, there's a lot of museums under heat right now, kind of globally, because of the investment that they've gotten from like big oil companies, right? Like there's like, you know, there's like massive protests happening outside. Like art, like creative communities are generally the people who, as much as you get written off as hippies, which I'm sure a lot of our environmentalists are also feeling very much, you get written off as like hippies, but it's like, it's the people who have to speak up, because if you have the space to, you must.
Yeah.
And like, it's historically, I think, been part of the importance of art and of the art community in general. Like, cause I mean, it's supposed to be about community. It's supposed to be about, you know, how you move and live in the world and what issues we're dealing with, ways for people to feel seen, like all these different things. And I think, you know, there's a ton of artists who've been making work around like, you know, climate change and like, you know, rising seas and everything. Like we had the show Post-Dorian Refuge, that was like, you know, a moment for people to kind of process and like think through. It drew attention to a lot of things around, like, as we all know, the infrastructural difficulties in the Family Islands that were problems before hurricanes, let alone after devastating storms.
Problems now.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. That problem ain't gone away. Like, you know, like Grand Bahama still has in a lot of places salty water.
Salty water, right.
Still dealing with everything. Everything. And then like, you know, Ragged Island, like people seem to have forgotten that Ragged Island basically just like had its half of its culture wiped out as well. You know what I mean? It's like, there's not just buildings going, it's people's family archives and things like that. Like there's all these layers to things. And I think that's, again, part of the importance is like art is supposed to be, or creativity in general, I think it's supposed to be about conversations. And also the idea that, you know, I think something that we don't give enough credit to is that science is a creative subject. You have to have creative thinking in the sciences, right? Like,
You do.
like
You
it's
do.
literally part of it. And like art and science didn't used to be split, like Da Vinci.
Well,
You know what I
this
mean?
is the
Like
thing,
these things
Natalie, like,
weren't part. They weren't
you
a
need
part. They were always
to,
supposed to be, because it's about being part of the world. It's about being in the environment that we're in and understanding, you know, the space that we live in, the context that we operate in. And I think, you know, that's kind of where our worlds mesh and meet up, and we've all been done a great disservice by being split generally.
well, I think, you know, we have to be intentional about reframing, reframe, because this all is all
Absolutely.
about programming.
Curator
our
brain loves
subconscious.
that.
So I think this is where it's like, it's so exciting because we now see this, right? And we're acknowledging that the system that we were trained in, where you did math over there and art was over there and science was over there, and even like how our governments function, you know, it's very siloed, segmented. And I think this is where, as we discover ourselves, and I think art is so powerful for us to just like the mindfulness aspect of it, of like moving out of our brain. You know, we spend so much time trapped in our brains, going down these anxiety spirals, making, you know, things up and problems that are never going to happen, but we think that they are, and then they paralyze us. And so I think this is where art is so healing, not only from a way of communicating, but then also for just internally processing whatever we're going through. But I think this becomes especially important when, because of our colonial history, people can't vision. You know, like that was the biggest wake up call for me, was that when speaking with some of fishers in the community here, and I was trying to facilitate a project about like, let's imagine what our fisheries would look like in 5 years or 10 years, the ideal situation. And this one fisherman who I have a lot of respect for, because he was just so real with me, and he was just like, let me tell you, like, when all you see is darkness, you can't imagine a light. And it was at that moment when I like checked myself, or he checked me, and I realized, okay, my ability to imagine an alternative reality was a privilege. And I think this is where, when we're talking about, you know, in order for us to change where we are, we have to be able to see something different. And not everyone can see the future or have that vision. And so I think this is where we help people to connect through art, connect with themselves, at the same time in supporting their needs, mental, physical, you know, just all the areas. This then allows us to co-create a shared vision. And it's through that co-creation of like, what do we want? Can we all get together and paint and imagine when like someone, maybe Mallory's giving a lecture about the ocean, can you be there and paint whatever comes up? And then can we, you know, create national vision boards on every single island about what the ocean, what the future of the ocean can look like, so that we can help our brothers and sisters out and co-vision together. You know, like we have to acknowledge that there are limiting factors to either accessing the art. You know, the amount of people in my community who I've experienced, and not just here, but just, you know, globally, oh, I don't do art, I can't do art, you know, and it's just like, it's not even about what the end is, right? It's just about the process, and just let yourself loose. But that is something so many nervous systems aren't used to that, right? And
Especially
so
right now.
yeah, you know, and especially when it's like it can appear to be, and I think this is where, especially for those of us working in the art space and in the science space and the environmental space in our country, we have to acknowledge that these are positions of privilege. Regardless of whatever our personal stories are, the reality is
Absolutely.
that, you know, not everyone has access to these spaces. Not everyone even knows or are in places to, you know, to even understand that a conversation like this is happening.
Or they know, but they don't
anything.
feel welcome, or they don't feel like it's allowed for them. They don't feel like, you know, there's allowed space for that.
So I think there's you know, you spoke about, you know, when we look at power, privilege, and pleasure. I like to talk about these three words all the time. But I really believe that we have to, this is as we develop our self-awareness, constantly checking, do I have power in this moment? Do I have an opportunity? Is there someone who is in this group that I'm with, whether it's sitting around a table or in a classroom or on the beach or in a restaurant, who may not be sitting in the same position, or is in a position of, is being oppressed by someone who's around me? And how then do I use my voice, or, you know, how do I serve as an ally? that's an ally for each other, an ally for humanity, but also an ally for our planet, which is, I think, Natalie, how you started. An Earth.
This I love this conversation. I love that the artist Willis Times many years ago won this art competition designing little postage marine life stamps for BREEF, and then said, why don't we have an underwater art gallery? Many years later, you know, saw Jason Taylor work and said, you want to come and help us build this? Let's make a place that has art that inspires people, that invites people to want to conserve and also educate. So that's why we just wanted to have a shift in a mindset, a different way of thinking how people relate to the ocean, but also have an image that brings awareness about climate change, about sea level rise. Like, for example, the Ocean Atlas, that female figure that's like carrying the weight of the ocean on her shoulders. At low tide, her hand was very near the surface when she was first put in, but even just Hurricane Matthew, shifting some sand, she settled a little bit. So it's a place of change, but it's a place of education. And I absolutely love taking students there that didn't know how to swim, but they were able to learn in that morning with a brief trip and then make it all the way out to the Atlas, even if they had a little floaty helping them along. But to see this huge, inspiring, you know, siren or environmentalist calling for change, it is like very, very dear to my heart. And I love that it draws like people out into the sandy area so the reef around it can recover a bit and not have so much tourism impact. And we can also use it to grow coral and show students living coral and showing people out planting the coral. So, you know, the access to the place, we need to work on getting better access, but a lot of people that have visited, and even tourists that end up visiting, they get that outreach message of, this is why we built this. We wanted to raise awareness about the need to protect coral reefs, and especially pollution and climate change, because there was like that oil leak right around the corner, and the government committed money to clean it up, and they made a new catchment facility. So we're hoping that is still effective. It seemed so for about a year, and I've heard a little bit of tales of a little oil lately. We've heard a lot about oil lately, but I think mostly it's been like offloading vessels, but very pleased. And I think another way that art has a way to reach people with a real environmental message is through film and documentary making. And I was also really pleased to work on Chasing Coral, filmed in part in the Bahamas and Australia and Hawaii. But in Grand Bahama, they show coral bleaching underwater through time-lapse underwater photography. It's like mind-blowing. On Netflix now, when people are just like, I don't have the energy to do anything to help the environment, they can choose from a whole slew of environmental messaging and documentaries where an artist has said, I want to get this piece of information out there in a salient way. And it can be really beautiful visual art or a film too. So
I've always thought that one of the things that we should be doing as artists and as stewards of the environment is that we should be sharing our love in a different way to the younger generation. Now, forgive me if I think that, you know, if these older people, well, they're set in their ways, so I'm not too excited. I'm not too excited. I said that's a fight for someone else. That's not a fight for me. But when it comes to young people, when it comes to children in particular, I feel as though they have an eye for what we are trying to accomplish. They have an eye for it. They may not know how to articulate it, but they have an eye for it. And we have to figure out how to have a different type of conversation with them. We have to figure out how to draw out those solutions. It's kind of like what I do with the Mega Mergers program. You know, you come in, you don't know anything about tires, you don't know anything about recycling. I introduce you to this idea, show you how it works, give you room to create solutions of your own. And I think that we should have programs like that. We should have art and science programs. Like I said before, my initial introduction to art was photography.
You do. It's called YME.
Yeah, exactly.
It was micro photography, right? And so the idea of the cell, I remember being in science class in school and looking through the microscope and seeing a cell and thinking to myself, wow, that's beautiful. Oh my goodness. I wonder if we could put that on a wall so you can really see it, you know? And it just seems like an alternate universe. It seems like something you would watch on Marvel or DC or something like that, a comic strip, you know? And it got me thinking, you know, what if for the Bahamas, what if we start to re-educate our kids in such a way that we keep their imagination alive through adulthood? We keep them so inspired that when they think of our environment, the thought of doing anything that offends it is, I mean, it's blasphemy, you know? And when I thought about that, I keep thinking about science, because I have a passion for science. I have a passion for science. Science is what brought me into the arts. And so when I think of the different ways that we can dissect all of these wonderful things about the ocean and make it artistic, animated, you know, take the things, the unusual things. My kids come to me all the time with things that, you know, it's just crazy stuff. Like, oh, you know, the anglerfish, this is what he does. And you know, this fish, and you can find this on the reef, and things like that, that inspire kids, that they get excited about. But I think we have to make them a part of the creation process. We have to make children a part of the creation process. We need to take that big information, those big words, those big ideas, and we need to transform them in a simplistic conversation. And then we need to have a think tank with these new innovators, because I feel as though a lot of the solutions that we're looking for and a lot of the insight that we're looking for that we can't see because we have our own biases. And we're still, like Nikita said earlier, we're still dealing with our baggage, and our baggage is kind of tinting our view of what's in front of us. But these kids, they're new to all of this. They don't have the kind of baggage that we have. But if we can take what we know and present it to them in such a way that is simplistic and they can tap into it, and then we can foster them creating solutions. And once those solutions are created, we don't take anything as, you know, we can't do that. We take it as, okay, let's do that. We're going to combine your idea with this person's idea, and we're going to make it happen. Because I realize one of the things that helps to push innovation forward is that there are no bad ideas. There is nothing, there is no ugly art that is created. There is, you know, there is no limits. There's absolutely no limits. And so we can take our ideals, we can take what we've learned scientifically, artistically, and just as adults through our whole life process. And we can disseminate that in such a way that a kid, a 6-year-old, 7-year-old, a 10-year-old can look at that information and be like, oh, I can build something off of this. Then we tap into a different language, because they speak a different language. People today speak a different language. They're this intellectual conversation, didn't know it's a different language altogether. You know, and every segment, every age group, they speak a different language. And we need to learn how to teach what we know so that when it comes back into the world, everyone can now understand, because that is truly the problem. It is not that people don't want to help, they don't want to be a part of it, but they don't understand it. Because as simple as our words may seem, we're not all speaking the same language. We may all say we're speaking English, but we're not all speaking the same language. And I realized that once we can translate it to kids, because of their imagination, they can now take what we've given to them and they can put it back into the world and just, you know, open up everything, even for adults. It's truly tap into adults, way easier than adults tap into adults.
I would not challenge, but sort of like take this to the next level to say that as adults, we have to tap into that childlike creative spark. We have to soften and get back into that play. You know, let's play tag. Let's, I don't know, go for a swim, make a sandcastle. But we grow up and then we get so stressed. Sorry, there's a dog behind me. And then we forget to play and we forget to enjoy. But when we talk about the solutions, whether it is the climate solutions, the new orange economy, new entrepreneurial routes that every single Bahamian is going to take, it requires that creative spark to get us to that point. And I think this is where this redefining, or maybe we should call it realigning.
Realigning, yes.
Because it is really, it's lifelong learning, right? It's not you're done with grade 12 and then that's it. And maybe you go to BTBI or COB or UB or all the spaces, right? But it's like, no, we are learning through our entire life and we're just getting started. You get your high school diploma or your leaving certificate, like that's just the beginning. This is where it begins, you know, and then as we get older, we get to develop these skills, harness these skills. And this is why I really believe the power of science, access to science, like real science, understanding the scientific method and being able to apply that in our day-to-day lives is going to transform how we see ourselves in this country, because we realize with science. It's funny, I was sitting once at a bar next to someone who was just like, he just couldn't comprehend. He's like, but you're always failing. And I'm just like, failing? I'm not failing. I'm learning. Like, this is the ocean I'm trying to save.
It's the nature of the scientific experimentation. You're just observing.
If it was like a quick fix, none of us would be here today, right? But because we are presented with seemingly insurmountable challenges, we now have the opportunity to tap into that creative spark, to learn from each other, bring children and adults together literally the same table, the same classroom, the same beach, and, you know, like go at this problem together. And this is why I go back to, you know, we're all guardians of planet ocean, and we all bring our superpowers. And yeah, children have that creativity plug, you know, and that is something that's very magical that they can share with us. And that we, I think as adults, especially, you know, we come from a very conservative country in many, many ways. And I invite everyone to like soften, you know, you don't have to be so serious all the time. You know, we can have fun and do amazing transformative work at the same time. But like, no, it's hot, man. You know, like it's hot. You don't always have to wear a button-down shirt and like a suit. But I mean, of course, if it feels good.
And it's only getting hotter.
Jump in the ocean. You're hot, jump in the ocean.
Jump in the ocean. That's it.
I should say to anyone that's watching and wondering that Nikita's background is not a virtual background. It's just that beautiful.
It does. It looks like Zoom was like, oh yeah, no, we're gonna like do this. It's like, no.
Right? But my Cat Island guy would be very upset if I didn't say that beautiful view is in Cat Island.
Oh yes,
right.
This is an incredible home in Cat Island that I have. I've just recently entered into the real estate space, which is so different because it's a different way of looking at the Bahamas. And it's so valuable because now I'm really understanding how our economy works. And it's also just such a gift to be able to invite people to move to this beautiful island and to help people find their perfect sanctuary. So yes, this is an amazing sanctuary in Cat Island.
At some point influencing certain kinds of like development that might be happening, which is nice. We would love that.
This is what it's all, you know, I've been very serious about this. And I mean, I'm very proud that this joining HD Christie was a new thing that came out for me towards the end of last year. And as I've been diving into it, it's been challenging because, you know, I'm new in this space. And when you are sometimes an expert in some areas, you just assume that everything is just going to be at that same pace. And so there's definitely these learning curves. But what's so beautiful is that I'm now imagining, well, what could development look like? Who can I attract, you know, who's interested in our beautiful country, you know, protecting the oceans, and what type of developments can we see happen that are really of service to us as Bahamians, you know, that are maybe developed and designed by Bahamians. And, you know, this is why I think it's so exciting. You know, a lot has shifted in COVID-19, but now with the access to you know, I'm joining you guys at an NAGB event from Cat Island. You know, things have changed, and now let's like take advantage of these changes and really make them work for us, make it make sense.
I'm so happy that you brought up the economic aspect of the environment, because like art, environmentalists, so people working in the environmental sciences, often have to justify their existence, right? Like I'm sure artists hear this all the time. I'm sure you guys hear all the time. Like, what is that going to do for me? Why do I need to care? What does this mean for me? What about jobs, right? So what can you tell me? What can any of you really tell me or share with our listeners, for the skeptics? What is the economic and social, maybe psychological, mental, but especially economic benefit of the environment?
Well, the economic, I feel like it's absolutely invaluable. I can't put a price tag on it, and the way the ocean makes you feel, I can't put a price tag on that. But from our protected areas alone, we get $6 billion annually. This is from an economic valuation study that BREEF commissioned Stanford University and the Natural Capital Project as part of Bahamas Protected, which was like a partnership between TNC and BREEF and B&T. So these are a lot of acronyms and initials coming out, but the fact that 5 billion is in carbon sequestration, and then another billion is from shoreline protection and tourism and fisheries. It's like, that is a lot of money. We need to be thinking about, we need to protect these resources and coral reefs that protect us because we need them. So that's a lot.
I would love to share a really exciting project that we are implementing here in Cat Island, and it is a brand new ocean trade. So you think about plumber, you think about carpenter, you think about certified community marine scientists. And so we actually have our first cohort now that we're working with. And by the end of this training, this team, and a lot of them, so this documentary that we have coming out is documenting the beginning of this training journey, which is fun because the two of the members, it was their first time snorkeling. And so that's always a magical experience. But our team are going to be going from PADI open water divers. They're going to be learning about the new Fisheries Act. They're going to be learning about basic Bahamian ecosystems. And then they're going to be certified as Bahamian science divers. And so this is a certification that the Cat Island Conservation Institute offers, which will also include special training in what we call the Atlantic Gulf Rapid Reef Assessment protocols. And now this is, when I use the phrase protocol, this is a methodology that scientists use to study the ocean. And what we're doing at the Cat Island Conservation Institute is that we're removing the barriers to accessing science and making it possible for members in our community to train these skills, to develop these skills. So then once we are all trained in a couple of months, we're going to head out and really start, and we'll be working. And so there's a team of community scientists. And what's so cool, we've got local government members, we've got fisheries officers, we've got teachers, we have students, a college student, high school students. You know, it really is just members from our community who will now have this new trade, the specialization as a certified community marine scientist, and they will be put to work. And
That's
I think
amazing.
It's so exciting. And now what we're doing is we're exploring, like, what are other models? Is there a way that we can fund our research through fishing? You know, like if we had a boat, and so one of the things that we're raising funds for right now is a boat that we can put, you know, proper fishing gear on, and our team can work it as both a fishing boat and as a science boat, right? And so how do we create new economies of scale, especially in communities that are smaller for our family islands, where a little job, one job goes a long way, you know? And I think it's about redefining. We always talk about jobs, but if we really were to look at the quality of the jobs that these, like a lot of these developments offer, they're not really high. They're often dead end. Often you don't have opportunities to develop new skills. And what's so cool about the certified community marine scientist is that you could get on the path to become a dive professional, whether you want to go down the PADI path, but even just learning science now gives you this ability and gives you transferable skills that you can then take on your journey. And we're exploring, you know, can we imagine a classroom where actually the entire island is our classroom? The ocean is our classroom. You know, we just happen to spend time inside the building with the four walls because, you know, sand flies, but really, like, you know, most of the time we spend outdoors. But let's reimagine, because I believe through exploring the ocean by creative, innovative economic models, and I want to be very clear, everything that I'm telling you right now, the certified community marine scientist training was only possible because 2 years ago, I started hosting paint nights in my community. And I hosted these paint nights because I needed to get to know everyone. How can we design conservation projects if I don't even know the people who are in my community? If conservation practitioners are just like parachuting in, saying that this is what we need to do and leave. You know, like, we have to be the ones who are changing the model. And it was because of art. And then funny thing is, I think I was known more as an artist on this island than a scientist, which is a really weird shift for me, because I was always like, I'm a marine biologist, but everyone knew me for the paint nights that I hosted. And so this is where intentional, the power of art through intentional action will lead to a transformed Bahamas, you know, this new trade of certified community marine scientists, and who knows, you know, like the ocean is the limit, and they're, you know, we barely know the ocean.
I love how the fishermen can share their knowledge and train the people just learning how to dive and survey on how to be good fishermen, and then the fisherman can become the scientist, and once his mindset goes to that kind of mental platform, he will network that out to all the other fishermen.
And then our job is
awesome.
so easy, right? The problem is we have never taken the time to meet people where they're at.
Right.
And more that we invest,
people instead of just workers or bodies.
We're equals. This is why we're the guardians of planet Ocean, right? And we come to our superhero table and we bring our superhero powers and we make it make sense. You know, and then we get to play in the ocean all day.
That's awesome. Congrats on that. I can't wait to see the documentary.
Okay, sorry. I was really enthralled in everything that y'all have going on right now. Y'all are just making this too easy for me. This is a very amazing discussion.
Brilliant.
I just wanted to sort of make sure that sort of the end, because, you know, we're wrapping up, but that we can make sure we're leaving our listeners, viewers with some actual tools, right? Tangible things that they can go out and do. So if all of you, because all of you, like I said, have dedicated your lives and livelihoods to this stewardship work, if you could share with our listeners some things that they can do to join the fight, very concrete things that they can do right now, tomorrow, to join the fight.
I can give some really easy examples. Every time right now I'm in virtual field trips. So I'm teaching about coral reefs and key species and pollution and climate change. But at the end of every presentation, I'm always giving kids concrete directives they can do any little thing in their own home any day easily, which is refusing all single-use plastics. In the past, everyone was saying recycle, reduce, reuse, all that, and recycling should be the very last resort. If we could say no to all single-use plastics, and even like plastic water bottles, if possible, use reusable items. You can turn off all the lights when you don't need them. You can unplug your devices when they're fully charged. You can make your AC warmer. Lord knows it's not that hot out right now. You don't even need AC, so reduce your energy use. You can tell your leaders you support renewable energy. You can make an art project or share by social media, raising awareness about threats to reefs or why we need renewable energy. You can support marine protected areas, go plant a tree, plant a mangrove. So there's all kinds of things that you can do, and you could volunteer as well. So.
Well,
Okay, you go.
well, my focus is tires. And so for all of you who, when you change your tires at the tire shop, rather than leaving it there, you can take them home. You can put holes in the sides and the bottom. It's just rubber. With a regular sharpened kitchen knife, you can actually cut out the sides for drainage. Plant a tree, any tree. You understand me? You take them, they make great hedges. You just fill them up with soil, and any type of soil. We have trees that, you know, no one can kill them. We have those things growing wild. And don't be afraid of the bushes. Bush medicine is a real thing. You know, we live in the Bahamas and a lot of wood grows in our yard. We take it for granted. But these are quality medicinal plants that are growing in our yards. So rather than adding your tire to the pile that is headed out to the dump, take yours home, put a little hole in it, put a little soil in it, grow a plant. Let's help the environment. It's a simple thing. It will beautify your garden, will beautify your life. And if you are renting an apartment, because I know a lot of people are renting, all right, I'm going to give you a simple planter tip. All right, so in case you have to move, you can carry your plants with you, because I know that's a problem. But in case you have to move, okay, you take your tire and you get someone to just cut a little round piece of wood on the bottom of the tire, the same width of the tire's hole, all right? Or even if you have a rim, the rim is still attached, you leave the rim inside, okay? And you loosen the tire, you lift it up, and you fill that top piece with soil. Just put some cardboard in it, or put some loose fabric in it, and you fill it up with soil, and then you put your little plants in, so you'll have your little mobile garden. Carry it with you absolutely everywhere. The outside, it doesn't have to be black. That house paint that you were going to throw away, don't throw that away. Don't put that in the trash. Okay, don't do that. Take it, paint the tire. Doesn't matter how you paint it, it's going to look lovely, I assure you. Paint the tire, put the plants in, beautify your garden. Don't add to the waste that is going to the dump. Add to the beauty that is going to be a part of your everyday life.
So I've been kind of going on beach cleanups and things since I was like young. In summers, my mom used to have us pick up bits of trash and stuff because she's a teacher, so we had a lot of time with her in the summer. God bless you, Mom, for putting up with us. So I just think honestly, one small thing that can make a big difference is when you go to the beach, just leave it a little bit cleaner than you left it. You really just only have to pick up 3 pieces of trash. More than that, if you're feeling froggy, go for it. But it makes a really big difference. And for anybody who's a art gallery or museum worker, start the conversation on conservation, because museums are very wasteful spaces. Because honestly, if you're thinking about how they have to be climate controlled spaces, the irony of that, right, is that it's not good for our overall climate. It's great for the artwork, not so great for the planet. And we keep forgetting, we keep having this conversation. Again, how the narrative is framed is oh, we need to save the planet. It's no, we need to save ourselves. The planet gonna be fine. We're not gonna be fine. We're not gonna be able to live here. That's the issue, is we're making this place completely untenable for ourselves and unsustainable for ourselves. So we need to do whatever we can, start whatever conversations we need to try and make things happen. And don't be afraid to pressure people just a little bit of fire.
I'm loving all these suggestions. So if I was to give you 3 things, whoopsie, I'm dropping all my notes. 3 things that are to be a guardian for planet ocean, right? These are 3 things that I'm also practicing right now, and I invite you to practice with me. So the first would be to have a conversation with Mama Ocean. Now, if you're in the Bahamas, you can get to her. All right. If you're not in the Bahamas, maybe find a tree or a glass of water. But I want you to disconnect from technology, and really, even if it's, if you can give yourself a gift of 15 minutes in silence, you and nature, even if it's just in your backyard, looking up at the sun, closing your eyes. Don't look with your eyes open, obviously, into the sun. That would not be good. But I really want to invite you to connect with all the magic that you are. And I really believe that one of the best ways that we do that is by spending time in the environment around us and in the beautiful environment that is our country. So definitely 1, connect with Mama Ocean. 2 would be to create a sanctuary for yourself. All right. A big part of how we are able to get up and make the decisions, right? Because sustainability, conservation, I always say it's a lifestyle. It's not oh, I'm going to do this on a Saturday and then maybe next in 2 weeks we go and do this. It's not how it is. It's every single decision matters, right? Every minute matters, every choice matters. And so when you can start off your day, if you are a homeowner, or if you live in, you rent, or if you're looking to buy, or even if you just have a little corner in your bathroom. I have a couple of little shells that I have on my windowsill in my bathroom. And it's just kind of this moment that I can connect, look at something pretty that connects me to the ocean. And the reason why I think this is so important is because if we're not connected to nature, we're not going to be in a headspace to even do anything about it. And let's be really honest, we as individuals, you and I can stop using all the plastic cups we want or all the plastic bottles. But at the end of the day, we need our international community to be on Team Bahamas, Team Caribbean, Team Ocean Nations, right? So yes, there are the micro things. I encourage you 100%. You know, how can you reduce your footprint? This is something that we all must be thinking about. And I want to see each and every one of us getting to this place where we're talking about ocean love, where we're talking about protecting the ocean is really about ensuring that you and I have the best quality of life possible. That we understand that the healthier ocean that we have means more money in each of our pockets. So when I forget what the figure that Mallory quoted, but we need to start seeing that trickle down. And the only way that we're going to be able to tap into that, was it $6 million or 600?
6 billion.
6 billion. I was like, 6 million does not sound correct. $6 billion industry is for us to connect with the ocean. And so this is going to be your gift to yourself, your gift to you, the future generations, your grandchildren, children, is to connect to the ocean. I promise you that. I promise you that.
What great advice.
Wow, I wish we had more time. We can keep this discussion going, but we don't. So I just want to thank you all so very, 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 very much for what was an amazing discussion. From all the hearts and loves, me, the floating head in the background. Just because there was a little delay in the live, if you could all just say your names and what you do again, just so that everyone knows who you are. And if you could also mention where they're going to find you and connect with the work that you do, that's also great.
Sure, I am Mallory Raphael, and I am the BREEF Research and Environmental Education Officer. BREEF is Bahamas Reef Environment Educational Foundation. Right here in Nassau, we're a nonprofit, non-governmental marine conservation organization that does a lot of education and outreach. And I'm on Facebook. I'm not one of those Instagram people. I'm on Facebook as Mallory Mejidia Raphael, and mallory@brief.org is my email if you want to book a field trip.
I am Candis Marshall, and most people know me as the Tire Lady. Well, that's become my unofficial title. My company's name is Cajoubon. That's CAJOUBEN. And trust me, once you type it into Google, you will find everything that you need to know about my work and what I do. And if all else fails, just type in Candis Marshall Bahamas. And if it has anything to do with tires, recycling, youth empowerment, or let's get it done, that's me. and of course, the arts, everything to do with the arts. And so check me out, Google me, Candis Marshall, Cajoubon on Google.
Brilliant. Is it me or you next, Nikita? Me? Okay. I'm Natalie Willis. I'm the Associate Curator at the National Art Gallery of the Bahamas, which is in Nassau, but I'm originally from Grand Bahama. And the ITE, the Inter-Island Traveling Exhibition, is one of the programs that I helped found. And it's been absolutely a joy to work particularly with Ziria on this iteration of it, but also to be able to translate it into the virtual realm and get a little bit more access. There's some silver linings to this horrific pandemic, and this is actually one of them. So, we take the wins where we can.
Beautiful. I am Eagle Ray Empress, and I am an oceanpreneur. I am the founder and CEO of Young Marine Explorers and the Cat Island Conservation Institute. I'm also owner of Cat Island Mermaid and an estate agent with H.G. Christie and Christie's International. And it has just been a pleasure to be with you here today from this beautiful sanctuary in Cat Island called Toby's Cove. And definitely this actually home is listed right now. And so if someone's interested and inspired by this beauty, please don't hesitate to reach out. There's nothing that I love more than spreading ocean love and talking about the intersections of art and science and community. And it was just a pleasure to be here from Cat Island. What an amazing world we live in right now, that we can have these conversations throughout, scattered around the Bahamas. So thank you.
Thank you, ladies.
Yes, thank you.
We've already kept you longer than we said we would. So thank you all. If any of you need to sign up now, you are free to do that. Mallory is going to show us a very educational, informative, environmental arts video. So if you could introduce that and share that with us, Mallory.
Sure. This video is actually from Vice Media, and it was part of a presentation that we created called Dive into the Coral Reef Sculpture Garden that teaches on coral reefs, but also shows why we made the sculpture garden and how we made it. So there's a bit of showing the deployment of all the sculptures, and the artists get to talk about their work and how it came to be. So I'll just press play now. Thank you so much. I love seeing you all, and hope you have a good day. And till next time, we have another great conversation.
Of course, thank you all so much again. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Natalie, we cut your tour a little short, but we're gonna move to your tour. Okay. Thank you, ladies, so much.
Thank you. Seriously, it's an absolute pleasure. Inspiring as well, motivating, all these things. Truly. Thanks, y'all.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Have a great day.
Have a good one. Bye, guys.
Bye. All right, see, let's do it. Okay, are you gonna screen share? Do you mind screen sharing?
I can.
Okay, great.
I have to find it, but I definitely can.
No stress at all. So just to give a little bit of background, I guess, on the show for anybody who hasn't, I think, checked out our virtual portal into the goodness. The ITE, or the Inter-Island Traveling Exhibition, was devised as a way for us to try and increase access to the National Collection for Family Islanders. I myself am a Family Islander. I've been living in Nassau for the past 6 years, and this is one of the first sets of programming that I worked on when I came to the museum alongside my then education officer, Abby Smith, who's now doing brilliant big mural things with the Central Bank and with students out in the community. So that's kind of, community's always been the focus, I think. This is the third iteration, I believe, of the...
Let me just make sure that this is live streaming, because I seem to have...
No stress. It's saying it on mine, but I don't know.
Okay.
Let's check. Ooh. I wonder. Oh, policy violations. Oh, that's why. Because the video.
Oh, that's fine. We can just reset for a second. Let me just make sure. Okay, we're good now.
Okay, it's good again? Okay.
Yes. Sorry.
Right. No stress. Thank you. So where was I? So this version of the ITE, oh wait, Blake's saying it's gone. Oh, he's saying we're back. Okay, we're good. Sorry. I was like, oh no. Okay, so this particular iteration of the ITE, the Inter-Island Traveling Exhibition, as you can all tell from the discussion that we had today, is based very much on ideas of sustainability. So we had to dig through works in the National Collection and try to put together something that could speak to the word sustainability in terms of its 3 pillars, which Ziria very much educated me on, I have to say. This is the beautiful meeting of sustainability and art. And I think anybody who does anything creative is just, we kind of all want to be lifelong learners. So From Time, Water Has a Perfect Memory, is essentially a way for us to acknowledge the difficult moment that we're living in as people and as a nation on the front line of climate crisis. This is, for me, very much in response to Dorian, Matthew, Irma, Joaquin, the past few storms that have been really ravaging and devastating our islands in terms of people, but as well as our culture. Really, on certain spaces, things get changed irrevocably after moments like this. So this exhibition is just kind of a way for us to, yes, be able to bring works in the National Collection to Family Islands, but also to be able to, try and actually open up these conversations around the situation that we're living in, and like thinking about how do we look to the past as a way to inform our future? So I'll let Ziria open up the goodness.
I'll begin by saying the exhibition is live and open to the public, and all you need to do to view the exhibition, if you're not following us on Instagram or Facebook, where you can have a direct link to the exhibition, is to go to our website, nagb.org.bs, and click on exhibitions here at the top, and you'll be guided to the page, and you'll also see other exhibitions that we have on display. And then once you're on the portal, you find the exhibition, it'll look like this. And I'm just going to click play and open it so that Natalie can guide you through the tour, and she'll let me know where she wants to begin.
All right, let's start with the old photos. So turn right around. Let's go with that. All right, so.
I need to zoom out, sorry.
That's okay, don't stress, don't stress. Just walking back a moment, it's good. Because, you know, virtual space. It's just a little bit of a moonwalk there. All right.
Okay, there we go. So clicking on the circle will allow you to do a movie directly in front of the image that you want to see. So
perfect.
Pro tip.
So this is actually this virtual walkthrough that we've taken images of is in the actual museum in Nassau. So we actually get to bring another layer of the NAGB to you, which is kind of great. So there's the series of photographs, and you'll be able to see them like better, like as thumbnails as well. Oh, that's great. That's great, Z. Thanks. These works that are all old colonial photographs based in the mid 1800s to late 1800s. And the thinking was that, you know, we don't always think about ourselves as people who have that much in terms of historical records and archives, because we've had historically a lot of difficulties with that. I think there's a lot of folks, I know especially for me, like seeing old photos of the Bahamas when I first came to work at the NAGB was a big deal because I didn't really know what old Bahamas looked like so much, because if you think about, like, you know, growing up in Grand Bahama, there's not that many old buildings because half of them have been destroyed in hurricanes, which is a touchy kind of thing. But, you know, we also can't really know who we are if we don't know where we come from, right? We come from several waves of colonial history. We come from a lot of exploitation and extraction through the slave trade. We come from a lot of migration of people, whether it was forced or by choice. And there's something, I think, really lovely in the idea of ancestral memory, even with all this hard, sort of contentious history to deal with, that could serve us. And I think it's sort of this way as well of like paying homage to and honoring those who found ways to survive before. And then we also have to consider the fact that, you know, the exploited labor and extracted resources of the colonial era, particularly like at its height for like the British colonial era, is what led to the Industrial Revolution, that led to this issue that we're having now around climate crisis because of fossil fuels and all of that madness. Like, you have to think about it as just like, we are a space that's kind of been at the underside of all this for our entire, like, our entire sort of written history. When you think about it, like, we've always been the people colonized, and now we're the people who are on the front line of the climate crisis that colonization led to. That's heavy. That's like a lot to think of. But within that, there is something really beautiful about the fact that we've managed to survive, and we continue to manage to survive. So remembering that resilience, not as a way to like feel like we're being written off by the rest of the world, but as a message to ourselves to remember that, like, we have that internal, spiritual, emotional, ancestral strength to draw on to try and figure out ways to chart a path forward. So I think the next section I'm going to have Ziri go to.
I'm just going to interrupt us here for a second so you can see. So underneath this, like Natalie was saying, you can look at them as thumbnails. So the exhibition is divided into 3 sections, looking back, like Natalie was talking about, our colonial histories, sustainability and survival, and imagining our future. And if you want a closer look at the images, they're also there on the page as well.
Yes. Okay.
Sorry, Natalie. You can go ahead. Where would you like to go next?
No, I need Ziri to keep me in line because it's always really important. I always end up going on like a million tangents, and I forget to actually tell people the things they need to know, like how to navigate the exhibition. This is why I'm the curator and not the education team. Can we go? Yes, that wall, the sustainability wall, please. Right. So, in also, again, thinking about our histories of extraction and exploitation, we have to consider the legacies of this, the post-colonial legacies of this. There's this lovely little tiny piece by John Paul Saddleton. I think it's the one right in the corner. Yeah. Here we go. Perfect. Yeah. And if you look closely, you can see that there is a cruise ship in there, right? That might not seem like a whole lot initially when you think about it, but you know, we have so many issues around the fact that we have a tourist economy, which has only been made more obvious of a problem in the midst of the pandemic. And then there's also this really strange relationship around how we've kind of gone from, for some folks and some Caribbean thinkers, we've gone from slave ships to cruise ships and from plantations to hotels, right? So it's like people of the Caribbean have always kind of had to live in a sense of service to others, whether it was forced or not, or now it feels like obligation. We don't really know how we're charting a path forward without tourism. We've been struggling with it. The country is desperately trying to get things safe enough to be able to just invite in tourists, right? Which isn't maybe the most sustainable thing for us right now, because then that's another risk, you know? But then there's also the environmental issues that come along with like the way that we treat our landscape, because that's essentially what this section is about. It's about how we treat our landscape and about the post-colonial legacies of trauma that, you know, make it really hard for us to be able to, like Nikita was saying, like for people to just survive, let alone have the conversations about the environment. So see if you can move to the next image right next to it. Yes, The Conch Gatherer by Al Sprague.
I just want to move directly in front of it so that I can zoom properly.
Marvelous, marvelous. I think, there we go. I love these little circles. All right. So this is a piece called Conch Gatherer. And there's something I find really interesting about it as a piece, because it's now there's all this conversation around conservation of conch or conservation, all these efforts. We're thinking about the fact that, you know, given maybe the next 20 years or so, we might not have any conch left. That's worrying. We all love to go like get our like conch snack, crack conch salad, stew conch however you get it. But, you know, as much as it's hard, I think the more we can do these little things every day where it's like, you know, if you eat conch 2 or 3 times a week, cut back to maybe once a week, you know what I mean? There's small things that we can do to kind of think about our environment in a way where it's like, you know, we're thinking not just about ourselves in the next 30 minutes when we want to eat some food. We're thinking about the next 30 years when like our children, our grandchildren, and like future generations want to be able to enjoy this part of the culture, because conch is part of our culture. Like we're not really considering it in that way, but like it truly is, because like it's like literally been part of the lineage of the Bahamas from the Arawaks and the Lucayans to now. We cannot imagine a Bahamas without conch. And part of that is around ocean conservation, proper fisheries, proper fishing practices, having more respect for our resources and not taking it as a given, which I think is, again, part of like the colonial legacy of extraction in the space. Because like if we're used to being a space that's being taken from all the time, there's something embedded in the public psyche around like, I just need to take, you know what I mean? So yeah, let's move to, let me see, let's zoom out a bit. Let's go to, yes, this section. I like this section. So these are a couple pieces by Maxwell Taylor on the left, and then a piece by Blue Curry on the right. These are in conversation, essentially as a way to talk about, again, the same sort of issues that we saw come up in John Paul Saddleton's piece, where it's talking about post-colonial legacies of trauma, the fact that, you know, we're living in the shadow of empire, and now part of that is including climate crisis, the way that the development of our land, especially our landscape, especially in Nassau, is contributing to unease and a lack of well-being in what's already a very difficult and tenuous space for people. Like, we live in a space where we can offer up fountains and pools and water slides to tourists, but people don't have running water in their house. That disparity is something to really think about, because that's sustainability in like all the senses, isn't it? It's like we're sorry, noisy neighbors. We're considering that we have the infrastructure for everybody but us, right? So again, living at the underside of everything, like it's like there's like a inherent within that, I think there's this value judgment that we aren't as important, and that makes it hard to advocate for ourselves. And we need to be able to advocate for ourselves in order to actually demand what we need as Bahamians, as people of the Caribbean, for change from these like bigger entities. So if we can move to the third section, which is about our imagining a future, our Afro-future. The other way. There we go. Yes, with the blue man. Awesome. So perhaps triggeringly, there's a couple works you can notice. The one that's on the left with LeVar, the little house with the spindly legs, and the piece next to it with John Beadle. Yeah. So this might be, or could, or probably is a triggering thing to think about. But, you know, if we're thinking about the fact that we're living in a space that's one of the most at-risk small island developing states in the Atlantic, that we're losing culture, land, reefs, our livelihood. The idea of mobility is something that feels really uncomfortable. Forced migrations, as essentially climate refugees, it feels really, really deeply uncomfortable. But there's something about how migration has always been a part of, and this sort of nomadism has always been part of our experience in the Caribbean as it is, because half of people in the Bahamas are either Haitian descent or Bajan descent or from other Caribbean islands, because we needed that before when we were developing and when we were like building stuff up in the first place, even though we like to conveniently and xenophobically forget it now. But migration and movement has always been part of our history. So there's something about this as like a tactic and like a way to think of, you know, really difficult questions like, you know, if a population moves, is it still an island? Is it still a country if you have to move somewhere else? Because we know everybody's been talking about like, oh, I could build my house on highland, blah, 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 blah. And it's just like, there's not much highland. We're like at or below sea level, half of us, and not that high above it. So thinking about
today might not be highland tomorrow.
Right, exactly. And also, you know, what does the future look like for spaces like ours when we know, and the world has been told for the past 20 years, that we're getting to a point where we can't turn back, and we're at that point. Can't turn back now. We can't undo what we've done. We can just do damage control a little bit. Thanks, capitalism. Like, really have to consider like what our future can and will look like in a way that's not just difficult and cynical. So like that's kind of what's coming out of like this mobility conversation for me, I think, is this idea that, you know, we've always moved, whether it was by force or whether by choice, or we're made of people who are from elsewhere. So we can continue to kind of, as people of the Caribbean, like, you know, we've been handed the worst situations possible, I think, some of them anyway, on the planet. And we've managed to make something beautiful, or find beauty rather, out of this space that we live in. And I think that's deeply meaningful and empowering in a sense. You know, we got handed, you know, devastation, debris, manure, and we made something like a garden out of it. We made a space for ourselves. We find ways to make sanctuary for ourselves, even in the midst of struggle. And that's not an excuse for being treated poorly by bigger entities, but it's an important one. And I think it's really important for us to consider our relationship to the landscape and to our ancestors in how we chart together a future forward. And I think that's the note I want to end on.
Thank you so much, Natalie.
Sorry, I had to that noisy car went back again.
Oh, that's fine. I'm surprised no one heard my dog, and maybe at some point you heard my dog, but it's okay. He's lawless, and so
Oh,
do what he wants.
we
But
love
thank you everyone for tuning in. If you have any questions about anything you heard tonight or about the exhibition in general, feel free to reach out to us on our social media. Facebook is facebook.com/the NAGB. Instagram is NAGB242, or visit our webpage at nagb.org.bs. You can also email us info@nagb.org.bs, or reach out to the Education Department directly, and you can email me, zmunroe, MUNROE, @nagb.org.bs. So we're here for you, and the exhibition will be open until May 31st. So share with a friend, share on Facebook, share everywhere so everyone can see it. We love to have you visit us in person, which because you're open now, or virtually.
Yes, and please feel free to email if you have any questions about any artwork. If you want us to come to you, let us know. Let us know. We're very, very open as a space here because this art is for everyone. It's literally, it's ours. It's our cultural patrimony. So
it is literally the national collection. So we keep it before we're storing and taking care of it. Like, we're stewards of the art as we are the environment, but it is yours.
It yawns. Use it. Thanks.
Thank you all for joining us.
Much appreciated. And Ziria, thank you for always being awesome.
Thank you, Natalie, for being just your amazing self.
Stop.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone.